Hey, party time. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hell yeah, dude. Dude, this is the first time. This is the first time, party time. This is the first time I've started one of these and had it work. I'm learning, man. I'm learning. How are you doing today? Do it, man. Party time. Listen, do it. The young man needs more brewing information in his life. Are you having a beer? Andy, I did start early, but I'm not actually starting early. This is me making sure my audio worked. For those of you that this is the first time you are watching a live stream, I think this is my fourth one. Four. And this is the first time I did it, everything worked. So I logged in early to make sure it would. So I mean, we can just have our own thing going on here. Andy Gallagher mentions that my TV is on fire. I like it. Listen, it's fall. It's fall here in the area of Cincinnati. That's not quite the Midwest and not quite the South. So yeah, I'm going to start doing the real thing at 8. So I mean, 11 minutes until you're just completely blown away with the levels of entertainment and information that you're about to take in. What is my favorite way to brew with nuts? Matthew, I'm going to add your question. I'm writing it. Fave way to brew with NUTZ. It's on the list, homie. Oh, it's not the Midwest, Andy. You can stop it. It's not the South, but it's probably I don't know if I've said publicly yet, but I think it's a little bit more like the taint area between North and South. It's not quite the Midwest. It's not quite the South. The North South, the South North, something like that. I've had a few things. This is for party time. We've been doing a couple different things. I just put next week I'm going to be tapping a Dunkelweiss, which is pretty cool. I took a bunch of cool tips from my buddy Rock Van Meter, who is out in Denver right now, getting ready for the Great American Beer Festival. This is like I think this is the first year that I have beers entered that I am not there for the competition. I've never won something at that competition. So watch this be the year that I win something and I'm not there to walk across the stage and touch whoever. I remember you used to get to touch Charlie. Yeah, at one point you got to shake his hand and then just your knuckles could meet him and then you had to just wave at him through some bulletproof glass. So so yeah, maybe this will be the year with maybe this will be the the year when I'm not there. If it is, it would be good for my humility. Um, Andy's still on that Midwest nonsense. He's lost it. Yeah, Matthew. Yeah, you aren't the only one that joined once when there wasn't any audio, and you just got to see me. And then you may have been there the last time where during the live stream, I thought I lost the stream, and then you heard me drop the F-bomb. And yeah, so anyways, none of that today. Audio is all working. Oh, I do believe you are north of the Mason-Dixon line. That was made so famous by all those. That's true. Bill, I love you, buddy, and I'm looking forward to seeing you. What got me into beer? Yeah. I think I'm gonna add that. That's a busy week in the cellar, and now I'm brewing up a dark mild. Hey man, listen, those small British beers are where it's at. I used to brew those when I first started getting into it, and yeah, man, those mid 3% beers, get out of here, man. That's where it's at. Those are the real all day beers, right? Those are fun ones. We used to take those. Bill, who's in the chat, man, I think Bill was there when we took. We used to go camping out on this island in this tiny lake in the middle of nowhere, Michigan, and you had to take a canoe to get out to this island. And we went there for years, man. It was great. It's a camping trip that's been going on for like, gosh, longer than it hasn't been. We're probably getting close to 25 years. And we'd load up corny kegs and stuff. I loaded up corny kegs and stuff one year. We brought them out there, out to that island on those canoes. And yeah, those are good times. Those are good times. So yeah, Jesse, those small British beers are fantastic. And Matthew, I'm going to take that question right now. We're still like running before, and I'm going to officially start everything here in a little bit. But what got me into beer? I don't know. I mean, I didn't really drink until I was 21 in college, and I don't know. I think in general, I've made pretty good decisions, especially like, first coming up, having your drinks for the first time and whatnot. First night I had beers, I was with my buddies off campus at one of the houses that the guys were renting. It was just a handful of us, really, really good friends. Some of my best friends still to today. I had 4 Coors. We did a lot of laughing. We had a good time, I'm at the age where right now, I've got a son that's away at college, and that's kind of my advice to him as far as the whole thing goes. It's like, if when you're gonna start doing that stuff, like make sure you're drinking with good people that'll look out for you. People like do it at a place where you don't got anywhere to go. Be safe. Make your parents feel better about the whole thing. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, just a little bit like that, and then I started getting into craft beer a little bit somehow. I don't remember. It might have been we used to throw an Oktoberfest party back in the day, and the only prerequisite that you come to the house with something German, and so everybody bring over German beers, whatever, and I think that was when I first started expanding the palate. I mean, I was never a huge lover of American light lager or anything like that, because that was what I was drinking in college. Once, I think, because I graduated and then came back to do my student teaching, and I think what we were drinking back then was something that might only be known in Southeast Ohio Valley. We were drinking Schaefer Light, which I think at the time was $3.99 a 6-pack. If you wanna throwback, but yeah. So, anyways, that's kind of it. Oh, so we started doing the Oktoberfest, and my buddy Dave told me, hey, you should make the beer for next year's. And so it was really getting into home brewing that made me realize that there's all these styles, there's all these things, and then found out you could compete, and judge beer and whatever. And that was really the slippery slope. I'm one of those guys that once I'm really interested in something, you kind of go all the way on it, and you don't go, there's no half measures. So yeah, it was kind of a deep dive from there. So. It's true, man. You guys did give me good feedback. Bill was one of the fellows that would go on that camping trip with us. That again, we've just been doing forever. Yeah. So anyhow, I am. Well, I'll tell you. I'll have to say it again. I'm drinking a beer, Hotel Tango, which is the last beer that Maggie brewed with us. That beer is her baby. It's an Italian Pils. Super nice beer. Really enjoying it. I'm about to grab my second one here shortly, and I don't know. It's good memory. She's over at Urban Artifact now, and I think she's probably doing a great job over there. She's a talented girl and just a really special person, just on a personal level. Just somebody that just brings all these intangibles to a staff. She just brings a lot of joy and a lot of kindness and a lot of honesty. Girl's got a really good heart, and she's a hard worker, and she's a smart girl. So they've got a talented one over there. Yeah, Matthew, you've been homebrewing for 10 years. It's awesome, man. It's crazy for me to go back and, I was essentially off social media before I started doing all this stuff, and jumping on Instagram and stuff and seeing some of the insane rigs that people have now. Some of the money people are spending on homebrew rigs right now. It's crazy. It's like all pro side stuff. They've got glycol cooled fermenters, and they got the big fancy 2-inch sight glass that they'll put on top of a valve, and they'll dry hop in there, and you can purge that and pressurize it and shoot it in the tank. It's wild, man. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that when I started. What is your preferred method of souring Gosa Berliner? That's a really good question, Jesse. Adding it to the list, homie. So today I'm going with the paper question. Sometimes I try to keep the questions on a separate screen, and I just went hard copy, baby. You know what I mean? You can't go wrong with the hard copy. So listen, I'm gonna grab a beer, and then I'll be right back. It's 8 o'clock, and we're gonna get going on this. All right, it is 8 o'clock. Let's get it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Adam Makes Beer. This is the October 2022 live stream. How's everybody doing today? I am cracking a beverage. This is Hotel Tango. This is an Italian Pils, brainchild of the great and powerful Maggie Clark. If I had my way, I wanted to name this Pils that she did. This is the second time she's done it. She was my assistant for about the last year. Really talented brewer. If I would have had, if I would have named this beer, I would have called this MGC Pils. Those are her initials. I just like the name of it. I think not Sierra Nevada. I think that Russian River has a pills that's just like 3 letters, and pills, I liked the naming. But this beer is called Hotel Tango. The story behind it is the H and T stands for happy tears. Maggie is is a fantastic brewer and an even better person. She is over at Urban Artifact right now, and she is one of those sweet people that when she fields good news, she can't stop herself from having happy tears. So, anyways, that's this beer is from Maggie. I'm glad to be having a pint of it here as we do this live stream. And yeah, listen, I hope everybody had a good month. I don't know, this past month has really felt like a whirlwind in a lot of ways. Busy at home, busy at work, personal stuff. The world keeps turning, man. And hopefully you all had a good last month. And I don't know, we kind of have those ups and downs, but hopefully you're able to keep your chin up and keep cracking through it and keep growing. But anyhow, we are going to get through to kind of the breakdown of what's been going on my end. Cool news for the channel. We have over 1,450 subs on the YouTube channel, which is pretty wild. Very grateful for that. Please, anybody, if you are enjoying the content and stuff like that, please make sure to hit up your homebrew club, your brewing buddies, and even your people that are just really into the craft beer scene. Hit them up with it and see if we can keep getting the word out on the content that we are providing here. So that's cool. I've also been trying to post a little bit more to Instagram. I had some problems a little while back where they banned me because they said that my behavior was indicative of a bot. I was never using a bot Instagram. But anyways, I am posting a little bit more on there, some more reels, trying to give little behind the scenes things and some updates on what we have coming up on the channel. If you've been following along, I just did my first collaboration. I did a collab with Flora Brewing out of LA. It was a really cool sit down and chat that she and I had. It was one of those things where we did have a conversation ahead of time. And so that was good, and it helped to break the ice. When I started the channel and I kind of got my first 500 subs under my belt, I started hitting up a bunch of content creators and stuff. And not a ton of people were super interested in doing a collab with me, which kind of stinks. And then, I mean, most people, some of the most well-planned people I've ever seen. I've had some people that tell me they were scheduled out for a year. I'm like, dag boy, you're really on that schedule game. So anyhow, I didn't get a whole lot of love on that front, but yeah, so Sarah at Flora Brewing was willing to sit down and kind of do just like beer conversation, talk, Q&A thing a little bit. She took some questions from her listeners. She's got some cool stuff going on over on her channel. She does stuff primarily on the homebrew side. There's some cool equipment stuff that you can watch, a lot of different recipes, brew days, stuff like that. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. And she has a lot of other things as well. She has like some longer form stuff that she does. She has a podcast. Smart girl. Good conversationalist. And that kind of goes back to what we were mentioning before. We were sitting down. We had the talk ahead of time. And so we sat down and do the Q&A, and we're recording or whatever. And I mean, it was going well, and like we're like really enjoying the conversation. And it was one of those things where you're a little worried, well, maybe it's going to be weird or awkward or whatever. Conversation was super smooth and fun. She actually just posted the second installment of that. So again, at Flora Brewing on Instagram and Flora Brewing on YouTube. We ended up recording a total of 3 episodes. After like the second question, she was like, if we don't hurry, this is going to be an hour. And then after the third question, she was like, I think we're going to do 2 episodes. This is fun. Let's just keep going. We ended up talking for almost 3 hours, talking beer for almost 3 hours. And so we ended up cutting it into 3 episodes. So the second episode on that just dropped. So make sure you're going over there and giving her a sub and checking out her content as well, because she's doing cool stuff. And that's the first one of those I've done. I'm going to be planning some other things. I'm setting up right now kind of a tasting video that I'm going to be doing with at least one of the guys from Stormcloud, maybe a couple of guys from Stormcloud. I have some of their beers. We're going to talk sensory a little bit, like how to taste beer, like a little bit of sensory ins and outs, but then also discussing their beers as well. They're doing some cool Belgian stuff up there. And so yeah, I mean, stuff like that's going on. I am starting to do a little bit more editing myself. And I just am releasing right now the Rauk beer video, Brew Day video. That is the, I think we got a gold medal for it in US Open Beer Championship last year in 2021 for Rauk beer. And so it's a real cool deep dive video on that. I think it's gonna be broken into 4 parts, including a full tasting and detailed recipe breakdown within that playlist as well. So make sure to check that out. And there's other cool stuff coming too. We are going to be releasing a beer called, it's part of a Motto series. Motto is a series of barrel-aged beers that we do. Right now we have a barrel-aged beer that we blended together. It's a combination of an Imperial Stout and a Baltic Porter that we had in these small 15-gallon bourbon barrels from Bissell Brothers is a brewery. It's something. It's a distillery down in Texas. I'll remember at some point. But it's a blend of that, and then we put it on a whole bunch of 11 pounds per barrel of the coconut product from Cholaka, which I absolutely love, and you should check out. We've been sampling that out of the fermenter. It's going to be really, really awesome. We're going to be releasing that at the end of the month of October for Cartridge Brewing's anniversary. So we're going to have the sweet wax bottles, all that stuff. You really should, if you're in the area at all, come and check that out. It will be a pretty limited release. We'll probably have no more than 200 bottles of that made. We will have some on draft as well. But we're tasting it today, Josh and I, and man, it's good. It's a good combination. So we have a lot of cool stuff going on as far as all that goes. And yeah, I don't want to talk your ears off for too long. We're about 10 minutes in with all this banter. Let me catch up on chat real quick. Oh, okay. And I'm going to start with this. Alex in the chat says, after seeing that I'll be talking at the Ohio Brewers Conference, I was wondering if you could elaborate on what you think a head brewer's job is when mentoring others trying to get ahead, grow in the industry. So yeah, I am going to be talking at the Ohio Brewers Conference. It's actually going to be, it's January 31, February 1 of 2023. I also have my fingers crossed. I have the same talk submitted for Craft Brewers Conference, I believe in Tennessee for 2023. I believe the title is something along the lines of, it's like leadership and building quality teams that create stability and foster growth, innovation in the brew house. It sounds like a professional title talk. So if I have anybody out there that is hooked up on the CBC level, holla at me. I want to do that talk there too. But yeah, so I'm really excited about that because it is something where I talk obviously more about leadership. And I think that is one of the underrated things that comes into play. I think a lot of times when people think about getting in on the pro side, they think about their skills as a brewer and their knowledge as a brewer. But really, most of us that get into this field and do work their way up, you become a manager, and you become a people leader, right? Yeah, I'm going to be giving a talk on that. Um, so what do I see the head brewer's job is when mentoring others trying to grow? First of all, it doesn't have to. Brewers can have different philosophies about this. Um, there's nothing wrong with a brewer at a brewery wanting to have people that are shift workers that do specific tasks, um, and not really looking at the like development side of it. That's totally up to them, and that's totally their right. It's easy to make the argument in one sense that there's so much transition in this industry. There's so many people moving from job to job that on some level you can't fault them for not wanting to pour extra effort or energy into training up their people beyond that point. It does so happen that I take a different take on it. My thought is now, but I'll also say this. I taught at-risk kids for 10 years before I started doing this. I do very much have the heart of a teacher, and I love training. And it's my personality. It's who I am. It's one of the big reasons that I love doing what I do. So for me, it's a huge part of it, man. For me, it's a huge part of it. I see, you know, being a mentor in the industry, developing people within the industry, I see as a key role in my job. One, on a personal level, because I've had people help me into the industry, and so I feel as if there's duty and you know, doing that for others. Um, but uh, but also I feel like I don't know, it's best for the brewery that I'm working. It's best for my work. It's best for the workplace that I'm in every day of the week, right? I would rather put a lot of energy into people, train people, and roll the dice on losing them, and have awesome people to work with, um, than not, right? Than have unskilled people working for me, and I'm constantly cleaning up their messes because I'm not training. Um, but that's just me personally. My hope is at the end of my career as a brewer, I would love people to say, "Man, he was one of the guys you wanted to learn from. That was the spot you wanted to get into to grow, to have opportunity to learn, to be challenged." And then also to be given the opportunities to like grow in whatever direction like you want to grow. Not whatever direction, but I mean, on some level, I think a brewery and a business should be at least open to having the vision of the business going forward, in some ways guided by the talented, trusted people that work for them. I think that's a big thing. I think that's a big thing. um, so that's my take on that. Again, I understand why some people don't do that stuff, and I can't necessarily speak for those folks, but that's how I try to approach it. And so, like when Maggie went off to Urban, I mean, my hope is, again, Maggie, my assistant brewer, who just took another job at Urban Artifact in Cincinnati. Um, my hope is she goes there, and the staff there is like, damn, this girl knows what she's doing, right? Like she's an asset. And I think that's, probably what's happening, because girl is an asset, you know. So anyways, I think training people and treating people well are good for you professionally as well, right? So anyways, that's kind of that. Anyhow, I'm going to start jumping to some other questions that I have on paper. First question I'm going to get to today comes from Norflock82 from Reddit. Have you obtained that barrel aged flavor? I've been working on a bourbon barrel aged imperial stout. I've tried wood staves, oak chips soaked in bourbon. I'm thinking about just throwing a few ounces of my favorite bourbon in an imperial stout keg and seeing how it goes. Have you successfully achieved this flavor profile? What I'll say about that is you need to look bigger picture. If you pour bourbon into a beer, it is maybe akin to microwaving a steak. Okay, you can get it cooked, and it will be cooked, but it will be gray and it will be gross. And I'm not super into that. So you need to look at the barrel as an ingredient, okay? And it just so happens that it's an ingredient that requires time, okay? When we think about barrel aging a beer, it's not just that you're inserting a spirit flavor into a beer. There's all sorts of things going on. There's all sorts of nuance. And just adding the spirit to the beer isn't going to necessarily bring you all that nuance. I've used a handful of different products. I've used spirals, cubes. I've never used chips or powder. I know there is powder available as well. I've used full-size bourbon barrels, and I have used 15-gallon bourbon barrels. What I will say about it is if you want to get a really nice, nuanced barrel-aged beer, on some level, I do think that that beer actually needs to go into a barrel that had spirits in it. There's so much complexity that comes out of those barrels. I would absolutely suggest, if you can, looking into the work that Julian Trego has done. I know he has a paper published with the MBAA on barrel aging and his approaches there. It is absolutely fantastic. It's a killer read, and you need to get your hands on it, or listen to some podcasts. I believe there are some podcasts where he's talked about those techniques. Killer information. There's so much going on with that contact time of that beer and that barrel. Yes, you're getting the infusion of whatever spirit is left in that wood, but you are also pulling out many compounds out of the wood itself, the coconut notes, the creme brulee, the caramel, all these different aspects, even the wood flavor itself, right? There's all these things coming together, and it actually requires time in the barrel to extract those things. Another thing is there is micro-oxidation that is happening in a barrel. So if you are going to fill a barrel and use it, I would treat it like you would any other vessel that you're putting finished beer into. I would purge it with CO2 and then fill it with finished beer. And leave it in there, man. If you're using large barrels, I really do think, like regular traditional bourbon barrels, I really do think those big, robust stouts that you're putting in there probably do need a year. They really probably do. And try to build up your body as big as you can when you're putting those beers in a barrel. That's my personal thought. People can almost never have enough body in those barrel-aged beers. If you're using a smaller type barrel, like what I did with the 15-gallon barrel, I have found that the 15-gallon barrel, I had to pull those beers out of there after about 9 weeks. And the bourbon character was even personally maybe a little more robust than what I tend to like. Then I like more subtle, more nuanced barrel-aged beers, not just blast you in the face. I don't think the beers that we took out of that were blast you in the face or anything like that, but it's definitely a little bit more aggressive than it was before, a little bit more warming, everything like that. So yeah, I mean, if you really want that barrel character, it's not the same thing just pouring the spirit in there. You actually need contact time with wood, that micro-oxidation. And then also thinking about it like this, some of the really big beers that people are putting in, 14, 15% beers, the alcohol in those beers needs to mellow. All right, so it can use that time as well. Okay, if you're going with a lower ABV beer, like a 9% beer in there, that might not be as big of a consideration, but it is part of the puzzle. So yeah, that's where we're at right there. Norfluck 82. Bumping back the chat real quick. September and June. What a loyal listener. Much love to the great state of Colorado. Please have a delicious lager for me, Mr. June. Have you ever had a slow pour lager? And what, dude, I don't know anything about slow pour lager. That's one of the things, those little side pour. I need to get out there and try a few things. Let me know if you have experience with slow pour, stuff like that. So, yeah. Hey, Maggie. She's in the chat too. I'm drinking Hotel Tango, girl. Hopefully you had yourself a good Friday. I'm missing you. I'll see you Tuesday. Next question. Nathaniel Anderson. I have been wanting to do an IPA just to challenge myself. I don't particularly care for the style of beer, but I only bottle condition, and I've heard so much about oxidation with IPA. Can I brew an IPA and bottle condition it without going bad / oxidizing? So first of all, going bad, the fire is a vibe, isn't it, Mag? Not only that, but listen, I got my hair cut, Maggie, and this is, I went in and I told them, give me the Joe Burrow. And they said, okay. And then just a large lineman came out and sacked me 9 times in a row. I don't even know what that was all about. But back to Nathaniel's question. As far as the beer getting bad, it's not going to go bad from an infection standpoint if you're clean. Just for the verbiage on it, and maybe that's not what you intended. But the oxidation thing is real, and especially with more modern IPA, with all those crazy hop compounds floating around in there, you do want to you want to keep O2 low, and you want to keep O2 low on all the beers you're packaging, right? So this is something that I would suggest for if you want to do bottle conditioning, you're at home or even on the pro side, because sometimes folks are doing like smaller, like higher end projects that they're bottle conditioning or whatever. And you're really worried about oxygen because it is a hop forward thing, I would consider using a beer gun and still just using like a gravity feed or something like that. So if you're using a bottling bucket, put your bottling bucket up higher than where you're bottling. But with the bottling gun, you could actually purge that bottle first before filling. I know people will say that the O2 in that bottle will be scrubbed by the referment, and I believe that to be true. But at the same time, if you're really worried about maximum freshness for those really aggressive hop forward beers, that might be a way to go. And then just kind of drop that out of the bottling bucket. You have your priming solution in it. You can just drop that right through the beer gun into the bottle that you have that you've purged, cap it, and then give that a shot. That might be a thing to do with that. So anyhow, man, yeah, I think that's a great question, because I think it's really underrated how much you need to be keeping oxygen out of those hoppy beers in particular. Out of all your beer, but hoppy beer in particular. Next question is from GBVKE on Reddit. Somewhere in the last couple of years, it seems Fermentus changed the suggested fermentation temp of SAF ale, SO4. Historically, it's always been 59 to 68 F, which seemed on the cool side, but people said you need cool temps to get clean results. Now, the suggested temp range is solidly beyond where many people claimed you get horrible fusels and esters. I can't imagine they'd change anything with such an iconic strain. What gives? Have we been duped by internet hogwash? It's my favorite. Am I falling victim to new marketing? Should I travel back in time or into the future and warn people to not drink my homebrewed beer? So interesting question. I did look into it a little bit. And it does seem as if on their website that they said they are changing out some packaging and they are changing out the temperature ranges on those. That's interesting to me, man. First of all, I will say this. Safale was pushing, I believe, S33, and I could be super wrong. They were pushing S33 as their dry strain to be doing hazies with. I've tried that in a hazy, and it's made me unhappy. I had this big fruit bomb of a double IPA I made. It was with peaches and all these hops that should be supporting like that peach apricot type range of flavors. There's a little bit of vanilla to soften it out, round it out. And I felt that the base beer was really nice, but that S33 really kicked like a banana character on it, and it was out of range, man. My hunch, and this is just straight up hunch, my hunch is that they are potentially suggesting warmer fermentation on that strain to push a more aggressive ester profile, because everybody wants to have a dry hazy yeast. So this is a pure speculation answer. Again, these folks know what they're doing, and they know what to be recommending. But at the same time, I could see that being a factor because people want to have yeast to be able to market as hazy type yeast. So maybe that they're looking to push that temperature up in order to maybe encourage some more ester. The temperature up on that yeast strain to push more of an ester profile that will hopefully mesh well with your New England style beers. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's not. Maybe I'm talking out my neck. I don't know though, but that would be my guess on that. So yeah. Yeah, Matthew. He found out that a lid on a bucket that he was dry hopping was broken and it wasn't appropriately sealed. Is oxidation concern for sure, man. But finish it out, do your thing, get it into package, and if it tastes good, get it cold, keep it cold, and make that beer public enemy number one as far as beer that needs to be drank faster than some of the others. Oh wait, it was kegged. Yeah, it's kegged. Yeah, man. Yeah, still, yeah. Keep it cold and drink that thing before it starts going south, which is probably the best IPA advice, anyways. Drink that thing fresh. Next question is from Razor97, and this is from the YouTube. Have you or plan to use hop shots, hop oils incognito, and how do you plan on using them? Great question. I am using some hop oils, and I'm going to start using more. This isn't the exact same thing, but I have been diving into cryo much more late to the party. For my Whirlpool editions, for my drop temperature Whirlpool editions, for my hot forward beers, I am pushing that temperature lower and lower. Currently, I'm doing some at 160 degrees in Whirlpool, but more typically, I'm still doing at around 170. But that is not these other hop oil products. I have not used many of them. I am currently using Tetra in a wide range of beers, and I am typically adding it to the bright tank as I am transferring a finished beer in. I'm adding a very small amount, really just about enough to increase the finished beer IBU total by 2, which should be relatively imperceptible. I have found that I feel like when I do that it does give a little added oomph to the original bitterness in that beer. It does make it a little bit more assertively bitter. It's not crazy. It's not off the charts, But at that low range, I should be receiving some of the benefits of head retention that you receive from using Tetra. I've even been using it on my rice lager called Cartucho. I have been pulling 5 IBU out of the kettle and replacing it in the bright tank with Tetra. That's a fun one. That's a fun one to check out. And yeah, that's a fun one to check out and to work with. But I've not worked with Incognito, or what is the other one? There's Incognito and something else. I have not played with those yet, but I have some friends that are messing with them, and I'm going to start messing with them over, in the coming year. So I'm looking forward to that stuff. That's that from Razor Annie Crooners on YouTube. Hi, Adam. What software are you using for brewing, sales, general inventory? First of all, here is a call to who are the folks that do Beersmith? Hey, Beersmith folks, make a inventory. The inventory portion of your program, make it to where it is seamless between different devices. And I think you will have so many breweries that make under 1,500 barrels a year using the crap out of that. App. I know so many people use that app for recipes. But if it were just a little bit more nimble, I think you could get more people buying the higher end subscription on it. I would be. I've done different things. I've done spreadsheets. This is literally my Achilles heel as a professional brewer, is the inventory management side of things and the tracking, things like that. Fortunately for me, over the last couple of years, I have had 2 people that are passionate number keepers and keg trackers and everything like that. So I've been lucky in that way. We've done spreadsheets, Excel, whatever it is on Google Docs. We've done that, and I think that's perfectly acceptable. But on the brewing side, I use Beersmith, and I use, I also use Brewing Water. Not that that's what you're asking. But on the sales general inventory side right now, we're using Ecos. I don't know how much longer we're going to be doing that. Ecos had this crazy email that went out where they're like, we're massively increasing the cost of doing biz. So I don't know if we're going to be sticking in on that side. But we'll see. I don't know what their game plan was. I mean, the various Facebook groups, whatever. I mean, had plenty of people complaining about, dude, this price hike is unbelievable. But I'm sure it's COVID related and something to do with inflation, and that's why they have to triple their prices for software. So anyways, that's what we're using. I haven't found anybody that loves anything that they're doing. I think the inventory tracking part of the whole thing is like, I don't know, how much do you love your canning line? Nobody loves their canning line. Canning sucks. It's the worst thing that you do in the brewery, right? So it's just a sliding scale of bad when it comes to these things. I don't hear anybody, screaming from the rooftops how something is far better than something else as far as that goes. But yeah, so not trying to hate on the Ecos people, but that's what we have. That's what we have going on. Yeah, I'm going to take this question real quick from JT. Hey, Adam, great channel. Thank you. Which is the best way to carbonate a unitank or bright tank in your opinion? Thanks. I'm going to throw 2 things out. One that I'm really excited about, and the other which is just normal. Typically, we go into a bright tank and we force carbonate it. with CO2 through a carbonation stone. And that's how we're doing that there. But just this week, we wrapped up a Dunkelweiss that I got some great advice on from the kind and decent Rockney Van Meter, which you should really go and check out. In our playlist, I have I have no idea what the playlist is called, but I sit down and talk beer for like 2 hours with Rock Van Meter, a brewer at Redwood in Michigan. Fun conversation. I took some of the approaches. I really took a ton of what he's doing with hef style beers, with those yeasts for a Dunkelweiss that we did. And I ended up unitanking that one. I fermented in the tank, sealed it, pressurized it up to like 14. I dropped the temp down to 33, and I let it sit there for about 2 weeks. I did blow the yeast off the bottom, but because clarity obviously is not an issue with these hef style beers, I wasn't worried about anything like that. So it was just a head pressure carb. I think I'm going to have a really nice foam on that. There's various schools of thought as far as the carbonation thing goes. But I do know, if you haven't checked out the stuff that Charlie Bamforth has done on foam, you should really check it out. But I do know that I believe there are proteins that are activated in that process of forming foam. They're a one and done. So the more you agitate that beer and generate foam, you're slowly degrading your beer's ability to generate a lasting foam stand. So just by using head pressure, it's a very gentle way to carb that beer up. So we're able to get full carb on that beer just with head pressure. We kegged it out of the fermenter today. We're going to be putting it on next week. I'm pretty excited to see how that turns out. But those are the ways that I handle carbonation in the brew house. And also with my lagers, increasingly, I just switched to doing all my mainstay lagers in 30 barrel batches rather than 15. So I can keep them in the tank longer. And my goal is fermentation done through terminal gravity and past VDK or diacetyl test. I crash those down to 33 and I'm head pressure on them. I want to get as much carbonation as I can just through head pressure with those beers as I'm dumping the yeast off, all that stuff. So anyways, yeah, that's my take on that stuff. ANJ80 on Reddit. Is it recommended to use half the weight of cryo compared to a regular T90 pellet? 8 ounces of dry hop of T90 would be a 4 ounce in cryo. I've heard some brewers say this is spot on, and some say that they dry hop with the same amount of cryo as they would T90 by weight because that ratio is not giving the results that they want. If you use cryo, what's your experience with it? Do you use half the amount? Yeah, good question. I do. Bottom line is, if you are using them on the hot side, even in Whirlpool, which I mentioned before, I am doing drop temperature Whirlpools for the hot forward beers that I'm doing. I have gone ahead and really cycled out the majority of T90 that I'm using in Whirlpool on my hot forward stuff. I'm cutting out at least 2/3 of it and replacing it with the same volume of cryo. And then on my dry hop, I'm keeping the same total poundage. So I'm doing like 4 pounds per barrel on IPA. And so now like at least half of that is cryo. I would say maybe one of the keys is, rather than just using only cryo in that spot, you're going to see a lot of people saying using a blend of T90 pellets and cryo. My thought is, and from what I'm remembering, and not that I'm like coming up with this off the top of my head, but like what I remember reading, listening to about this is that you do want some T90 character. There's balancing factors and dry hop character that you get out of actually having a little bit more of the vegetative material in, whether that be a polyphenol thing, whether that be a green matter thing. There's a lot of things going on there. So I think it's probably best to blend those things. So you can cut volume down on that, especially from a bittering aspect when it comes to cryo, because they are typically twice, sometimes a little less than twice, as impactful on the alpha acid side, on the potential for bitterness side. But I would say, yeah, first of all, just get after it and go after it and start using cryo. And try it out for yourself. Do something all cryo, do something where it's split, and check it out. And take notes on it. Do it with people that actually, you know, like want to learn more about beer and want to know things, whatever. And try to get some unbiased feedback on those different beers and see where it's taking you. Right now, I am happy using essentially subbing out about 60%, 66% of the hops that I'm using in whatever charge and subbing that in with the equal volume of cryo. So, yeah. Okay, let's see. Yorp Tune on Reddit. Are there any reasons not to transfer to a keg and cold crash after final gravity is reached? Anything that might happen at room temp on the yeast and hop sludge that won't cold in the keg? Are there any reasons to not? Okay. So here's the deal. There's a couple of things that need to happen. Sometimes people will watch for the bubbling to stop in the fermenter, out of their airlock or whatever. And they'll see that stop and they want to crash it right away. I would give it a little bit more time. There are things that are happening post that active blow off, and also active blow off is not necessarily the best way to judge that. So let's say, for instance, that you are, I see this a lot of times with lagers. You start off fermentation cold at 50 degrees, and at that lower temp, CO2 goes into solution much more readily, right? Like you can't carb hot beer. You're gonna have a hard time doing that. But cold beer is gonna soak up that gas. So if you're ramping up your ferment on a lager, which I do in order to help it finish out in a timely fashion, in order to push off sulfur, in order to get through diacetyl, things like that, I will finish my lagers up at 65, and I will be past terminal and past all the other things I'm about to talk about, but there's still gas expressing out of the tank. And that's because there's this gas in solution that now at a higher temperature is able to slowly escape. And so I'll still see some activity. So it's not always the best judge. But yeah, stable gravity for a few days in a row, definitely. And then beyond that, you want to be able to do a VDK test or a diacetyl test. A diacetyl test, just in a nutshell for me, is I pull a sample off of a fermenter. I run it, I heat it, and what I'll do is I put mine in like a Nalgene water bottle and seal up the top, you know, a few inches deep, whatever. And then I heat that up. Some people do microwave. I don't. I do it with hot water. I'll run hot liquor tank water slowly into a container that's holding it for 20 minutes, a half hour. And that'll heat that up. And then you open that up and then you smell. Now it's crazy. Don't dive your nose in there because there's a lot of alcohol coming off. There's a lot of unpleasant stuff, but kind of smell above it. And if you get butter coming up out of that, raising the temperature in a closed environment like that helps to get the diacetyl out of solution and into the headspace. That's where the seal comes into place. Then you open the seal and you can smell if it has that movie theater style or that toffee type aromatic in there. If you're still in that stage, you need to give it more time, because what will happen is yeast will consume all the sugar that it can, and it will produce other non-desirable flavors, other non-desirable compounds, let's say that. And some of those non-desirable desirable compounds are taken back up once it is devoid of having a sugar source. Okay. So you do want to give it a little bit of time. I also like to, if I can, allow fermentation to creep up a little bit towards the end. I think that helps to facilitate that. And it's one of the reasons why you just don't want to slam that beer down as soon as you see that airlock stop popping, because there could be some other things that the yeast could still be cleaning up. So yeah, a little bit more beer. Matthew in the chat, I believe. Favorite way to brew with nuts? Dirty secret time. I don't use real nuts in beer. Grow up. Okay, come on. This is a family channel. I know people do use people are roasting almonds, crushing them up, and doing all sorts of different things. I don't do that. I do a hazelnut stout called Holster, which will actually be coming out very soon. It's a great big rich cream stout, lactose stout, milk stout, whatever you want to call it. And we use and I use hazelnut extract in that. But I will say this, you might think that's a cheater thing or whatever. Here's the deal. The problem with using nuts in beer is that nuts have fat. And I don't want fat in going into a beer. I also, especially Holster is a beer that goes into cans for us. And so I wouldn't want to be taking a beer that has fat in it going into a can and going warm on the store shelf somewhere. I think you're asking for troubles. If there's other folks that are doing it and they're killing it with it, God bless you. Me personally, I am using the TTB approved hazelnut extract from Apex Flavors, formerly Silver Cloud Estates, I believe. I love their stuff. It is awesome. I use it at a relatively low rate, far below what they suggest using, but you're going to hear me talk about this a lot. I'm all about attempting to layer flavor anytime you are doing an adjunct beer, right? You want to have, in this case, you want the malt supporting that hazelnut character as much as you can. So what I do to do that is I layer in a lot of very nutty malts into that. That beer, I've done that beer with a ton of Red X from Best, which to me is a very nutty version of Munich malt. I've also done that beer with a lot of Vienna, Munich, different things, trying to play up the toasty nuttiness of even just the base beer. And then when you fold in this low level of quality hazelnut extract on top of it, there's a natural extract, it just magnifies and it helps round it out throughout the beer. Okay. So I personally do not use nuts in beer. I do use coconut, but I am using a pasteurized, basically coconut smoothie from Cholaco, which is a baller product, and you should check it out. If you are a fan of coconut beers, you really need to do that. This Motto series beer, this barrel aged beer that I was talking about before, dude, it's coming out so well. And I don't want to sound like I'm horn tooting, but it's a good product. That coconut product from Cholaco is a great product. And you have the underlying booziness, bourbon character from those beers, and then that nice robust roast character, dark chocolate coffee, bro. And then you throw that coconut on top, man, it's luscious. Did I mention it's luscious? I did. So, anyways, yeah, man, if you are going to be using nuts in the brewing process, gun to my head, if I had to be doing that, I would increase surface area on them. I would crush them because surface area is going to be a big thing. If you're going to be using almonds, I don't think you just want the whole almond going in there. Maybe other people are doing that, and that's great. They're doing some of those hot boy pastry stouts. That is absolutely going to explode that can within about 8 days after you get it. If you store it warm, that's awesome. Good for you. But I would say my hunch is you could potentially roast them whole and then break them up, or crush them up and then roast them. I do like the idea of raising the temperature of those of the nuts that you're roasting going into that beer. And at least from a microbiological standpoint, potentially you can get those things a little bit cleaner than they from a sanitation standpoint. But then I would go on I would go on the cold side. I would have a finished beer that's kind of ready to rock. Not finished as in carbonated, but done fermenting, and then give it some time to age in a tank if you can. Rouse it if you can. Blow CO2 through the bottom of the tank, or whatever vessel you have it in. You like that I started doing the motion. Rouse that, spin that fermenter, that carboy, what have you, things like that, and then give it various contact time. I'd probably go, I don't know, at least 5 days on something like that, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I would check that out. I would check that out. All right, let's see here. The Razor on Instagram. I think he also asked a question on YouTube, but on Instagram it's the Razor. The Razor, what is your procedure for raising and lowering your pre-boil gravity if you don't hit your targets? Here's the deal, and here's a plug, dude. You need to check out the Rauch Beer episode. I have episode 1 out now. By the time most of you are going to be watching this, I'm going to have episode 2 out because I'm posting that tomorrow. I had this exact issue where you have too much sugar in, your wort is too dense going into the kettle, different things like that. I actually had this problem pop up with my Rauch beer, my Helles Rauch beer that I brew. I brewed that earlier this year. And I do half batches with that because, let's face it, who wants 15 barrels of Rauch beer? All jokes aside, it does pour well for us in house, but I do think it's primarily because it's a Helles Rauch beer. It's golden, and so we do a half batch, and we try to do whatever. But I missed the color high. Okay, so what I was looking at in the kettle, the color was high, but then thankfully also the gravity was a little bit high as well. And so I decided to cut that by about 10%. I had 10 barrels of wort in, so kind of 10%. But I added another barrel of wort into that. And so it was able to both I was able to dilute the sugar density of the wort, for one, and it was also able to cut the color. And I didn't want that Helles Rauch beer being anything north of gold, right? So yeah, that's what I did with that, and that's kind of how I handle that situation. As far as lowering your gravity, you can water that back. I would suggest that you're still watering that too dense wort back with filtered water, making sure you have your chlorine and your chloramines out of it, and things like that. But yeah, you would want to do that. On the flip side, and both as a pro and at home, I always like to keep some dry malt extract on hand in case I was too low on hitting what I wanted to hit gravity wise in the kettle. And you could always dose that boy up in the kettle with a little bit of DME. So that's how I'd handle that. I'm gonna talk on this for a second because I like it. September and June, does Bill brew good beer? I've heard he's pretty good. Just a quick shout out, just overall to that team down in Raleigh, North Carolina. If you're in the Raleigh area, you guys are fortunate. Linwood Brewing is making some great beer. Bill Gerds and Andy Gallagher, two guys that I have worked with before in the past, and I absolutely love them dearly. Super talented guys, and they make great beer. Bill makes good beer, man. I mean, he's got the medals to prove it. I'm gonna be traveling tomorrow, but during the award ceremony. So Rockney and Bill, you're gonna have to text me should lightning strike, should anything positive happen for the humble boys over at Cartridge with that competition tomorrow. But Bill's quite frankly, I mean, Bill's a well decorated brewer, man. He's always had a nose for hot forward beers. He also makes killer dry stout. And Andy, who is holding the brew house down over there at Linwood, he's a good brain for it, man, and he stays learning. It's one of the things I admire about him, is that he stays learning and pushes himself, even when he has to eat crow on finally making a beer like New England style IPA. I don't even give him any shit for putting lactose in it. So, but I'm just a good friend. So, anyways, that's that. Another sip of beer, another question. Tay Brew Co. IG. I have noticed that you use 2 different types of chocolate malt. Why have you designed the recipe that way? I think this is specifically talking about I don't know, one of the stouts that I'm doing, or maybe it was when I was talking about doing American stout. I really do like doing that. Now this is it's in my genes from having a never-ending love for Jamil Zainasheff. Jamil Zainasheff, I originally started listening to him on the Brewing Network when he was bringing home all those awards on the homebrew scene, when he was winning Ninkasi after Ninkasi, and then opening up the tremendously successful brewery that he opened in California called Heretic. Yeah, he's not attached to Heretic anymore, but super talented, super kind, super giving dude. And Jamil always talked about, like, when you hear me trying to talk about like creating arcs of flavor, that's all Jamil stuff, man. And the idea is, it's not like just go kitchen sink when you're making beers and just have all the malts in them or whatever. But if you have a beer where it leans heavily on one thing, it leans heavily on roasted barley, it leans heavily on chocolate malt, something like that, the next time you brew it, give it a shot cutting that volume of roast malt in half, and then splitting it with something like, I think in particular this was referenced to, I use chocolate malt in the beer, but it's actually half pale chocolate and half chocolate. Look at doing some things like that when it comes to caramel malt, and you know, you want to have an arc of flavor or something. Say maybe it's more of a traditional malt forward American amber. Maybe look at blending up, rather than just throwing Crystal 60 at it. Maybe blending up a little Crystal 80 and a little Crystal 40, right? Something like that. And seeing if that gives that beer maybe a little bit more nuance. That's what I'm chasing when I am separating, when we're talking primarily specialty malts, right? But roast malt, crystal malt, when you see me combining 2 different ones like that, two different flavor ranges, taste those malts. You'll see that they're bringing different things to the table. And if there's any way that you can always, dude, this whole thing that we're doing, this whole brewing thing is it's about balance. Number one, is this beer balanced? Well, is it clean? Of course, is it clean? But is it balanced? And is it tasty? And like tasty meaning, yeah, it tastes good, But then there's also like that next level where you're like, if you do want to sit down and enjoy not just the beer, but like dig into it, is there nuance in it, right? Like we should be wanting to create layers, creating layers in a beer without, I don't know, going over the top with it and just kind of going kitchen sink and making a muddled mess. But yeah, so that's that. Love you too, Rock. Next question. I am almost. Oh, this is from MetJet Pen Deck on Reddit. Quick Reddit rant. I'm trying to get back in the good graces of the people at Reddit. All right. I'm trying. So, I mean, say a prayer for me. I need the help. I want to be able to. I want to be able to use that platform like as a way to. Obviously, it might be an avenue where there would be people interested in the stuff that we're talking about. But also like I like to get questions from there, and they don't want me posting videos and things like that over there. So I'm trying to appeal to some kinder natures over there. I'm hitting up the mods, dude. I'm hitting up the mods. Maybe hopefully they'll be kind to me. I'm almost 2 years into this quagmire of a hobby. So far, I've successfully brewed Weiss beer, pale ales, and IPA with the occasional verbal trophy from my friends. Wow, can I have another? Yes, that is a good feeling. But one style I probably love the most, Porter Stout, has still eluded me in success. Some have been decent, like the latest coffee vanilla stout I made, but I can't seem to get the creamy sweetness I'd like to achieve. Lately, I've been thinking about using lactose in syrups, like the one from Candy Syrup. Does anyone have this experience on this or tips on how to make a good sweet stout? I think when you come down to it, the sweet stout I am making is, hey, what's up, pesky brewer? How's it going, dude? I'm sorry. Oh, sweet stout. I'm still making a variation of Jamil sweet stout from Holster that I was talking about. It's a riff on Jamil's sweet stout. I do think you need a good amount of lactose in those beers. First of all, people are insatiable for the heaviest, sweetest sweet stout. I swear, if you are entering homebrew competitions and you make a sweet stout that is borderline undrinkable because it is so sweet, you'll do well. But I mean, practically, those beers aren't supposed to just be like these viscosity bombs, right? They shouldn't pour like syrup themselves. But I'm still using that recipe, man. There's a few things that I would say for that style. There's a couple of different metrics that you're pushing. I do think that you want robust roast character in those beers. And you do want lactose, and you're probably going to want at least 10% lactose in those. Throw it in at Whirlpool, late in the boil, something like that. 10 to 15% maybe. But then the metric that I think people are missing sometimes with that beer is actually dropping down the bitterness too and making sure the bitterness is low enough. I try to keep the bitterness for my sweet stouts in the 20 to 25 IBU range, all at 60. Don't worry about trying to chase any hot flavor with later hop additions. That's not really what you're doing with that style. Anyways, at least I don't think. I don't think you necessarily need to be chasing syrups and different things like that. I've made a lot of beers that feature large volumes of that whole range of sugar syrups from, what was the company? Candy Syrup. It's a very particular flavor, and it's not what you're doing with sweet stout, in my mind. I think you want solid espresso notes coming through, and then you want this big residual sweetness. So mash high if you can, if you're brewing on all grain. I also wouldn't discourage you, or I could just say more conveniently, I would encourage you to use something like maybe like oats or flaked rye, which will also help pick up the body and viscosity of that beer, and then slam it with 10-15% with lactose, and then make sure that bitterness is dialed down low enough. I think you can pull that bitterness back low enough. If you pull it back too far, you can get in the range of doing something that's a little too wordy or a little too raw wort tasting, because there's not enough balance. But yeah. So anyways, I think I have some folks here. I'm going to be right back. Give me just a second. Take a bathroom break, refill a beer, whatever you need to do. I'll be right back. Hello? Oh, so follow up on that. Favorite final gravity for Sweet Stout, dude. It's higher than you think it will be. The holster finishes close 1028. Pardon me, all these hiccups. I'm going to repeat this whole thing because I am going to cut this down into another video. Final gravity for Sweet Stout, holster for me is 1028. I think you can get away 1028 to 1032. Me personally, I don't like drinking them that sweet, but people love it. People love it, man. If you're brewing a beer for competition, get it up to 1030, 1032. I've had some ridiculous. So your starting gravity is going to start higher, right? So yeah, plan on mid 1060s, 1070, and then finishing it out around 1030. And it might sound crazy, but I swear when I was brewing on the homebrew level, dude, the sweeter I made those beers, the happier the judges were. So yeah, that's my take on Sweet Stout. Sweet Stout was the first beer that I ever meddled with as a home brewer, and it was the only beer that I meddled with in nationals. I was making a coconut Sweet Stout, which is kind of merging some stuff that I'm doing. Anyways, that's that. Let me just Matthew McConnell, real quick, your favorite resources to learn more. I would go onto the Brewing Network and listen to the Brewing Classic Style stuff, the Jamil Show on there. Killer information. A ton of I should have a highlight list of the best shows and or the most informative shows for me from the Brewing Network. They have some amazing content that they posted there over the years, and quite frankly, in many ways, I owe my professional career to them. So hats off to all those boys, Justin and JP and the crew over there. But stay current on podcasts, man. There's some good stuff on there. There's some stuff that I really like on popping up on craft beer and brewing. It's not all for me, but sometimes there's some really baller stuff there. New IPA by Scott Janish. You should be following Scott Janish's blog on his website, scottjanish.com. If you can get a subscription to MBAA stuff, they have killer technical quarterlies. So 4 times a year, they release a bunch of technical stuff there. Just do your digging for the people that are balling out, man. Learn from high caliber brewers. The brewers that you love, for me, I would listen to Vinny Chilurzo. I would listen to Matt Brendelson. I would listen to those guys any day of the week. If they're going to be speaking on beer somewhere, I'm listening. So yeah, I would go after it like that. Backyard brews and barbecues in the chat asked, throughout your brewing career, do some or most of your beers share many of the same malt bills or hops to keep inventory simple? Not necessarily. I'm moving that way a little bit as I keep going. But I am making more and more German beer these days, and so things are more and more simple as far as that goes. What I will say is this: I think that there's similarities. There's a common thread with how I build beers and things like that. You know, there's things that I do with specific malts. Like for instance, I'll use, and this is an old Matt Brendelson, Jamil Zainasheff thing probably, but if I'm on a 15 barrel batch, so it'd be about 5%. If I'm looking for a little bit deeper malt character, like a little bit deeper character on the bready side, you'll see a sack of Munich get thrown into something. The other things that have become like, and this, I mean this in the best way possible, like things that are signature me, like not that I own it or that I invented it or anything like that. But increasingly, when I'm looking to push viscosity in a beer, a little bit of mouthfeel in a beer. So like actually the tactile sensation of like smoothness in a beer, even in things where it's inappropriate, you're going to see me adding flaked oats or flaked rye at about a sack's worth, at about 5% worth. Different things like that. But yeah, I do try to, it is nice to keep inventory relatively simple. It is nice these days without me. I don't use a ton of caramel malt. I do use a decent amount of Crystal 3 from Crystal Wheat, which is a 3 Lovibond crystal malt from Malt Europe, which is something that I like a lot. And I tend to use almost like I would use simple syrup in a cocktail, just straight line sweetness, maybe a little body, maybe a little foam add there, but not a lot of color, not a lot of flavor, some things like that. But yeah, I mean, I try not to go overboard. I try not to go overboard. Right now, I use pretty much exclusively Weyermann products for my traditional German stuff. Our light lager, which is Cartucho, which is a Mexican lager. Just the other day, somebody was debating what Mexican lager is. And for me, it's any light lager that tastes nice if you throw a lime in it. It's an adjunct lager. For us, it's 20% rice. 1039 goes down to 1006, fermented with clean lager yeast. Yeah, I mean, I use domestic malt on that. I don't use the German stuff on that. I do use a blend of base malt and Pilsner malt domestic with that. But yeah, I'm not using a ton of crystal malt, and I also don't use a lot of color malt, a lot of roast malt in the brewery at this point. So yeah. Anyways, Stephen, re-ask your question. It was retracted. Next question. Jesse from the chat. Preferred way to sour, Gosa or Berliner? I'm going to say this. I haven't done a ton of traditional lacto fermentations with those. My preferred way to do that general style, how that style has evolved, I think increasingly real Berliner has kind of faded into these quick tart beers that are often fruited and different things like that. You can feel however you want to feel about it, but that is what it is. I've made a couple of Gosas, and I've had a lot of success with Philly Sour, and I like it a lot. I did an episode on brewing quick tart fruit beers that you should check out. It's a full brew day breakdown. Check that one out. There's a lot of tips and tricks in there as far as that goes. Yeah, I like using that. I will say though that it doesn't generate tons of acidity. And one thing that I would be open to is if you wanted to, maybe looking at adjusting those beers with a small amount of lactic acid to maybe drop it down a little bit lower. That might be something that you find favorable. And I would suggest beer and then potentially dosing it in a glass, pouring on top of that, and then kind of seeing how that goes from there. So yeah. Hey, Stephen. What's up, Adam? Made a wrap beer with 15% Brief cherrywood smoked and 15% Wyoming beechwood smoked. Also, Munich Pils, Graphic 2. Could the cherry dominate? Stephen, that sounds a heck of a lot similar to what I am doing with that. Actually, Michael Bruckner, brewer buddy of mine that was working with me at the time, that was his baby, the beer Smokestack. Seems real similar. I don't think that cherrywood's going to dominate. I'm using it at a smaller percentage. I could be wrong. But off the top of my head, I believe I'm using it at a smaller percentage. But it could. I don't know. I think you'll be fine. I think 30% for me personally, the bigger question is are you going to have too much smoke in that beer? And at 30%, I don't think you will. That's kind of my happy space for those beers. Smoke gets phenolic for me real fast. So plasticky for me real fast. So I tend on the lower side, like that Schlenkerla stuff. I can't quite do all the crazy 100% beechwood smoke stuff. It's too much for me. But let me know how that turns out. Hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, and then let me know how that version of your smoke beer turns out. Okay, keeping it rolling. I want to make an imperial stout this winter. Could this recipe scaled up? If you were to scale it up, would you adjust anything if you were to turn it into an imperial stout? This is Tay Brew Co. on Instagram talking about the American stout recipe that I talked about during the last live stream, and then I also cut that into a short video. I would approach imperial stout a little bit different than I would American stout. Some of the things that I would do is I would potentially, well, it'd be higher gravity for an imperial stout. So I would take the base, I would take the specialty ingredients in a beer like that imperial stout recipe that I gave, and I would increase the base malt in order to raise the ABV on it. And then I would, I might drop the bitterness a little bit. I might pull the bitterness back to like 40 to 50 because I do like a little bit of residual sweetness in those beers, but that's just personal preference. You can go higher on bitterness with that. But I think a lot of times what you really want to do if you're taking a beer style and wanting to turn it into an imperial version of it, I think you want to maintain the same bitterness to gravity ratio. Okay, so if let's say something, let's say what would be really easy. You want to do an imperial amber ale, and it's a 1050 beer, but you're doing like a real bitter version of it, and it's like a 50 IBU. It's like that 1990s whatever, like some super bitter version of it or whatever. So that would be a 1-to-1. That would be 50 to 50 gravity points to 50 bittering units. If you were to scale that up to 80, an original gravity of 80 gravity points, you would want to slide proportionally that bitterness up to maintain the same level of balance. That's an approach that you can take when you are going to imperialize a beer, maintain the same ratio of original gravity to bitterness, and scale that up along that way. And I think that can be a really helpful way to kind of make a beer an imperial version of itself. Beer crack. Got a few more questions, you guys, and then this is Panzer. This is our fest beer. I'm still so pleased with how clear it is. I almost overpoured, but it's a little bit cold on the glass. It's not best to see clarity with, but super clear. Really nice foam on this. This is a beer that I used the 2 IBU edition of Tetra with, and it worked out really well. You can just see like the foam stands just sitting there. I'll talk a little bit more, and I'll show it again here in just a minute. Rock, I miss you at GABF too. I'm not even gonna lie. So Half Cut Craft on Instagram. I keep getting a smoky pepper flavor in my beers. Did I catch a bug or something? Yeah, man. Unfortunately, you have something going on there. My guess is you're talking about phenols coming off of the yeast, and if you're getting that same character in multiple beers, that's going to be a problem. That's based in sanitation. Anything that has like a legit hard surface. So if you have plastic or if you have glass or stainless, you will be able to clean and sanitize that appropriately. But honestly, all your softs, all your plastic buckets that you're using on the clean side, all your soft tubing, different things like that probably needs to be swapped out, and kind of look at revisiting and doubling down on those cleaning and sanitizing practices. So yeah, I mean that's really it. It could also be something that is potentially if you're reusing yeast, reharvesting yeast, it could be something going on the yeast side for you as well. But yeah, that kind of stinks because it does point to having to potentially buy some new stuff, replace some softs. Anything that is soft in your process will probably need to be scrapped, and looking for something else. So, yeah. Mr. Gibson, hey folks, what avenue should I be looking into to gain experience coming up on the halfway point of brewing school? But everyone near me wants years of production experience to get noticed. That sucks, man. Maybe you're mobile. Hopefully you're mobile in that situation. I know there's typically a lot of places that want help. But I mean, work with the brewing school. Quite frankly, the brewing school should be facilitating your job opportunities and or internship opportunities. So I would get with them on that. So yeah, see, still nice foam. This is a cool product. Okay. I have this is from 1419 Brewhouse from Instagram. I have a couple of questions about the Gradzidski beer style. Have you ever brewed this style? No. I first had this beer style at Noct in Salem, Mass. It was excellent. Now I want to brew this beer style. I plan on doing a step mash with 100% oak smoked wheat and hopping with Hallertau Mittelfrüh. Should I use just a German ale yeast, Y yeast, 1007, for example? And these beers pressure fermented? Any tips you might know about this beer would be awesome. Thanks for your time and take it easy. You need to check out a podcast that Live Oak did on craft beer and brewing, and they talk about Gradzidski. Great, great, great information. I will say I went there and I drank that beer, and I am not gonna lie, it blew my mind, man. It's like a 3% beer. I believe they're lagering it. I believe they're using lager yeast. Um, but I have pictures of it. It was kind of like this hazy little thing. It almost looked like a hef slightly, but it definitely had haze. But the smoke character was so unique. It wasn't like the Beechwood Age stuff. I don't know, man. It was a mind blower. I'm not gonna lie. For a 3% beer, it was a mind blower of a beer. It was probably the standout beer for me at Live Oak. Now, I mean, but Live Oak was just all killer beer. Don't get me wrong. But that Grzyski, man, that threw me for a loop, man. Especially for a smoke beer, super drinkable from the smoke standpoint because it wasn't super overbearing. Yeah, just I don't know. Yeah, check it out. The everything you're mentioning sounds spot on. I do believe Live Oak is lagering. So if you have the capacity to give it a nice, beautiful, clean lager ferment, go for it, man. It was a great beer style. It's fun. Let it rip. And I would love, please hit me up and a follow up on there. No joke. I tasted that beer and I wanted to come back and try to make it myself. It was so interesting. And the coolest thing, I think the thing that's most exciting to me, right? I think it's a beer you could put in front of like not the most adventurous drinker and they would still kind of be down with it. Like I think it's like this fascinating gateway smoke beer, if there is such a thing. So yeah. Let's see here. A day in the life. I'm drinking a fantastic IPA, just keg, made with Amarillo Mosaic and Citra, 12.5 ounces total. And I did hot mashing for the first time. That's awesome, dude, man. I tell you what, it is one of the satisfying things, making that beer, having it turn out the way you want. And I don't know, same with cooking, dude. Making a baller steak. Made a steak a little while back with I made a compound butter with bone marrow. Dude, if you want to start hurting feelings on the cooking front, man, 50% bone marrow to 50% butter. Let that thing firm up. It's a firm, full upgrade on a steak. If you got a choice steak, it makes it prime. Legit. And I'm hungry, if you couldn't tell. So there's that. Mike Maroney, another dear friend. Mike Maroney, what is a favorite hop varietal that isn't in the limelight? I'm gonna shout out Calista. The first time I used that hop was in a collaboration that we did with 50 West. Ryan, the pub brewer over there, who's just an absolutely awesome guy. We went over and we did a collab for this beer called Sip Trip that we do. We're both on the same bike trail. It's this thing that we do, and we do like a promotional. You drink the beer at X number of places down the trail, and you get something or whatever. But more importantly, the year before we ended up doing like a hoppy Kolsch, and then this year we did an Italian Pils, and we brewed it at Ryan's place this year. Dude, it was such a good beer, man. It came out great. Just a ton of Barca Pils from Wireman. I think he was going Hallertau with it. And then a Calista dry hop. Really nice beer. And so much so that ironically, we've been talking about earlier, I was drinking Hotel Tango. Hotel Tango is like very much heart and soul what Ryan was doing with that beer at 50 West. And Calista is just really nice. And in my mind, if you are looking to make like these increasingly popular, like hop forward, like kind of German inspired pills. In my mind, they have like a little bit lower bitterness, but more hop flavor, hop aroma. We layered this up with Saz late in the kettle, but then Callista in the dry hop. And to me, it's very noble, but like fruitier. And it's just an awfully nice hop for if you're doing like an American interpretation of German pills, and you're looking to stack up a little bit of nuance with the hop profile with it. Check out a hop like Callista, and even like use it as your primary dry hop or as your primary whirlpool hop, something like that, or even mix it in with something classic like Saz. I love Saz. And blend those up and see what you get. That's one hop varietal that I would give a little shout out to. And it's kind of for this emerging style too. Increasingly, you see these American versions or Italian pills, these dry hop pilsner, stuff like that. It's a fun one to work with. So, yeah. Brian on Reddit. I brewed a pale ale and then kegged it. My first time kegging. I brewed my first beer in 2007 and have been homebrewing ever since. And this is the best lacing I've ever made. Every pint I pour is nice, long-lasting lacing with distinctive lace rings. Very visually appealing. Is this a consequence of kegging forced carbonation as opposed to bottle conditioning, or did I just get lucky with this brew? I know everyone says CO2 is CO2. Yeah, but what is the deal with that? So we have nice lacing here, and I will say this: beer has nice lacing. It's clinging to the glass. That is magnified by uh, Tetra, the hop oil that we're using. Yeah, foam is an interesting thing, man. What I will say, I kind of touched on this a little bit before, but the less you agitate your beer, the better. Because you do not diminish your capacity to generate and maintain foam. People swear by bottle conditioning. Probably a guy that has won more medals with bottle conditioning than most people have is my buddy Rockman Meter, and he swears by, and I don't blame him because he's got the resume to show it. I do think there is something to not force carbonating beer. That it's a more it's a gentler process, and you don't denature. I believe I'm using the term correctly in this application. Denature those proteins for foam production. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. This has some similarities to an earlier question. I would dig into the interviews that Charlie Bamforth did on the Brewing Network. Dig that stuff up. I think he did some stuff on color, clarity, and foam. The guy just has an accent that makes you want to keep listening. He could read the foam book to me, to be honest. But yeah, Charlie's one of those guys I like. Maggie, Hotel Tango, exclamation points. Exactly. Maggie, it's a lot hoppier than I anticipated, but it balances out really well. So Maggie brings up a great point with this Italian pills that we were just referencing. It is on the hoppier side. Me personally, like day to day, if I just wanted like a day to day smasher beer, like the one where it's like optimally refreshing for me, I'm thirsty and I want to drink a beer. I would do something similar to what we did with Hotel Tango, but I would pull some of the late hop character out of it, and I would want really what I'm saying is I would try to brew industry pills from ABGB down in Austin. But yeah, I would. It does have a little bit more aggressive hop flavor and aroma than you expect from pills. But for me, yeah, I could dial that stuff down, and I think you can make a pills that would be. I think you can get a broad audience drinking it. Some people that think that maybe they would never really be able to dive into that firmly bitter pilsner and be able to enjoy that. But yeah, it's a super nice take on it. And Mag, you should be really proud of that beer. I think it's really tasty. It's clean. It's bright. And then like we always used to talk about, it's a data point, right? It's what do we do next time with it? You know, how do we want to make that? How do we make that better? I'm so glad that we made that beer because it's a step closer to the dream Pilsner that I want to make. Like I said, I would pull the dry hop out of it, and I would maybe push like a little bit more like into the whirlpool or something, but kind of do something a little bit more subtle with it. Because I think, again, you could hit a wider audience. But Hotel Tango is drinking great, man. If there's anybody in the Cincinnati area, get in and taste it. Because it's a great beer. It's on tap right now, and I love Maggie, and it was the last beer we did together, so it was it's got some nostalgia too. But yeah, so let me see here. Enjoying the vids. What is the biggest challenge for a craft brewer these days? I love you too, Maggie. Maggie just said she loved me in the chat. I love you too, sweetheart. You're so nice. Dave Dempster, I'm going to reread. I got distracted. Enjoy the vids. Thank you so much. And I have to say, you guys have been giving me so much positive feedback about the channel and everything like that. I really appreciate it. I appreciate it. What is the biggest challenge for a craft brewer these days? A few things. Let's look at it in a few different ways. Business side, prices are going up on everything, right? From a business side, prices are going up on everything. Other challenges. The other question is, it's a little bit more philosophical, but it's also a business question. It's like, what do you do as a brewer? Like, do you try to be like one of these hot boy brewers that's like, you know, that you're super known for hazies, or you're super known for like these hella adjunct beers, or you know, people lining up at your doors for stuff like do you chase that, or do you try to like just sell beer, right? Because there's something good when you're operating a business about selling a Mexican lager that costs 1.2 cents an ounce in raw materials, right? Because we have to keep the freaking doors open, you know, like, so I would say one of the challenges is like, how do you how do you make compelling beer, compelling drinkable beer? Maybe that's just the thing. How do you make compelling drinkable beer? You want to be technically sound, and you have to try to walk the line between saying, okay, this is the bulk of the beer that we serve, and these are the breadwinner beers, right? These are our standard beers in the way that, you know, these beers make the super majority of our profit. But then also, like, how do you have like some of those, can you have a little bit of that hot boy stuff that will also bring in some of the nerd love? And I'm saying nerd lovingly for all of our beer nerds out there, right? But I think sometimes we forget, like when we're selling beer for a living, we can end up listening to the very vocal minority, which is our beloved beer nerds, right? Sometimes the loudest voices are people that you know, that aren't impressed. Like, you know, here's the thing: you could have, okay, so I have lagers at GABF. I could take 5 gold medals in those lager categories. That's not happening, but that if that happened, I would still have beer nerds coming in my spot and giving my lagers 3.5 stars because lager sucks, or whatever, right? Because it's not adjuncted out, or different things like that. I think that's one of the I think that's one of the challenges right now, and kind of continuously is. And maybe it's more of a personal thing for the brewer, because I'm not gonna lie, man, it feels good when people line up outside your spot. You know, like, I remember people lining up, opening at the cartridge factory, and it's a killer spot, man. It's awesome. It really is. That tap room and brewery there is beautiful, and it's a unique spot. It is a destination type spot to check out. Um, and I remember seeing, like on Friday we opened at 11, and I remember for lunch, and I remember seeing people line up out front. Yeah, that feels good, you know. But like, I don't know, how do you balance that? How do you balance on saying, these are our breadwinner beers, these are the ones that we're trying to be a little bit more flashy with, without losing focus on the fact that it's actually probably inexpensive beer, that's paying your bills. But yeah, so those are some of the things, and then some of the other stuff is, I think we're going to be rolling into tough times here, man. I think everybody's going to be rolling into tough times. Um, I don't want to be gloom and doom, but the economy doesn't look outrageous. And yeah, I mean, there's some strange things going on out there. So could be some challenging business times coming up for us. We'll see. We'll see. Let me check right here. SMN. I will say, I have to tell you, I don't know who you are. I've never seen you comment anything before, but this is one of my favorite comments. I don't even brew beer, and I love this content. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Makes my night. All right, I'm gonna hit this last question, and then we're gonna wrap, good people. I've had the privilege. This is Stephen Fisher. I've had the privilege of tasting some big tasting, low ABV beers. What areas of focus should we be attentive to? Water chemistry, high quality malt, or both? Okay, so that's a savvy question, man. I'm going to use a beer that I make currently. And it's a beer that I'm really proud of, and I feel uncomfortable talking about stuff like that. But I'm very proud of a beer that we make called Prost, which is a Munich Dunkel. It's like 4.6%, so it's under 5%, but it has like this dark malt thing going on, and so it's a little bit darker, but it drinks more substantial than the 4.6 from a flavor intensity standpoint. But the balance is right. I feel embarrassed saying this stuff, but I am proud of this beer. It's a beer that like you can drink, and like it can stand up to some pretty robust food. You could still drink it when it's cold, because sometimes people like the whole cold weather darker beer thing. Um, but it's just really nice. And I think you're spot on. I do think it's honestly it's good fermentation, it's water chemistry, and it's good malt, man. You can't that's where it's at. And for me, it's Wireman. I love that stuff. To me, that Dunkel Prost I'm talking about, it's all Barca stuff. It's Barca Munich. I think there's some Barca Pills in there too. There is a little bit of just straight Barca 2. There is just a little bit of Wireman 2, Munich 2 in there. And then it's just some Cara Munich 2. So there's no like specialty like caramel or anything like that. We keep the bitterness restrained in that beer because we want the sweetness to kind of help flesh that beer out and make it seem a little bit more substantial. I do push, and it might be non-traditional, but with my water profile that I'm using here, I do push chloride with it to kind of round that beer out a little bit. I love that beer. I'm super proud of it. If I were ever going to medal at a big competition, I would love to medal with that beer. I have that in JBF right now. So again, fingers crossed, but we'll see. Backyards, Brews, and Barbecue. Thanks, Adam. Love the content. Keep it up and looking forward to future videos. Thanks so much, man. Really, very much appreciate it. So here's my sappy wrap up. Super appreciative of everybody jumping on with questions just to hang out. I really enjoyed doing this. Yeah, hopefully you guys are getting value out of it. And really for me, the big thing is please share this stuff with folks that you know that would like it. That's the biggest thing that helps me out. And I'm very, again, genuinely gratitude. So there's one more Arcana. Are Cara Munich malts acidic to mash pH like crystal malts? Yes. Join the Discord as well. I should probably share that a little bit more. We're trying to bump up this Discord platform that we have a little bit. It's a good way for you to be getting questions directly to me. It'll be a good way to increase visibility for questions that you have. I'll answer them in there. It's a good way to get questions onto the live stream. So yeah, very much appreciated. Much love to my man Dave P, who's been helping me out trying to build up that Discord. I will post the link to Discord if Backyard Brews and Barbecues. Link to Discord. I will try to post that on my Instagram. If you're on Instagram, I share that on my stories on Instagram periodically. Yeah. So, anyways, thank you all so much. It's been a ton of fun, and I hope you have a great month. We will talk next month. A lot of cool stuff coming up. So stay tuned. I've also had people asking for videos that I've already made things on. Please check through the playlists that we have on the YouTube channel. There's a lot of content starting to stack up over there. Hopefully you guys have a great night. I'll talk to you later.